It turns out that you can actually measure a moat. And I'm sure Warren Buffett always knew this, but would never tell anybody about it. And it's the key to what a franchise looks like. And it's got two elements. So the first element is, if you've got an entrant coming in, what is the minimum viable market share that that entrant has to get to? And that's all about economies of scale. So it's how big do they have to have sufficient scale economies to be viable. If you look at things like distributing carbonated, caffeinated beverages, you pretty much have to get to 25% local market share to be able to sustain the distribution infrastructure you need, the marketing infrastructure, and the local advertising infrastructure. If you're part of a global automobile market, you can be viable at 1 to 2% market share, and you're not going to keep anybody out at that point. For things like cell phones, you look at cell phone companies, they start to be economically viable at basically 10 to 17% market share. So you start there. You're looking for a situation where the economies of scale make it hard for somebody to enter. And the second element of this equation is, how hard is it and how long does it take for an entrant or a competitor to acquire that market share? And that really is all about share stability, which is driven by customer captivity and whatever proprietary technologies you can bring to the table to help keep competitors out. And there, the measure is simple. So if you look at carbonated soft drinks, caffeinated soft drinks, about 1/10 to 0.2% market share changes hands in any given year. If you're going to get to 25% market share at 1% a year, what you're talking about is a 250-year moat. If you're going to do it at 2% a year, you're talking about a 125-year moat. And that's a powerful moat. So the two elements you're going to look at there are the economies of scale and the proprietary technology and customer captivity that protects those economies of scale. For cell phone companies, you get to 15%. Typically there, as much as 0.5% changes hands a year. So you're talking about a 30-year moat. For automobiles, you got to get to 1 to 2%, and 1% changes hands a year. So you're talking about a 1-year moat, which is no moat at all. So what you're looking for are moats, minimum required scale for entrance, and the difficulty of acquiring that scale. That is economies of scale and customer captivity and proprietary technology. Ultimately, of course, to have the economies of scale you need, you want to be the dominant competitor in your market. So all the first and simplest test here is, are you the dominant competitor or the dominant firm in your market? So you start there, and then you look at the required economies of scale, whether they're network effects or whether they're simple fixed costs being spread out, and you look at the customer captivity, the customer behavior in the face of competition. Those are the elements you have to look for.
Can I ask you a question?